Howdy, folks. Welcome back to Let's Get Wicked podcast, where 85% of our content is Villainous by Ravensburger, and the other 15 fluctuates between Kingdom Hearts and coffee. What you may realize if you've been around for a while is that I am not Joker Jonesy running the show today. I have usurped him from his throne just long enough to make him the spotlight for today's show. I'm Headmaster Ditto. Hi, guys.
Hi.
And like I said, Joker's here. We thought it'd be fun to
Hi.
mix it up for you guys because, believe it or not, we just crossed not too long ago about 365 days since Joker actually started playing Villainous.
That's correct.
So we thought we'd give it a shot to have him give a little bit of a year perspective, kind of a go back in hindsight look at how everything went with the game and where we are. So
All right.
we
I'm
kind of
excited.
that's a good sign. We kind of know your story with Villainous from now, where you kind of hadn't really looked at it until Evil Comes Prepared started. But just as a little bit of a context, what other kind of games have you played before Villainous?
Oh, wow. So I talk about this a lot that probably my main game that I played a bunch before Villainous was Star Wars Destiny. And a lot of the other games I was playing too was a combination of Smash Up by AEG and Root. I was really getting into a lot more of the deeper, heavier games in the past years because if we're being very honest with the audience, I probably wasn't a really heavy board gamer or someone who wanted to get into the more strategic side of the tabletop industry until probably I would say maybe 2015, 2016. A lot of my board game experience actually comes from, growing up playing a lot of Monopoly and a lot of Life. And when I got older, the first kind of game that really kind of gatewayed me into like a different tabletop atmosphere was Ticket to Ride. And that just kind of opened the floodgates for me to actually want to discover other tabletop games. And so that just kind of led me down a path of kind of discovering a lot of different things, which led me to discover the games that I just mentioned: Star Wars Destiny, Smash Up, um, all that, and Root and all that stuff. So that's really mainly what I played. I would say probably, and as I've told people, my favorite game before Villainous was Star Wars Destiny, and half of it was due to the theming and the speed. And those are just things that I absolutely adored from that game. And I'm also a huge Star Wars fan, so it helped that the theme really tied in with the gameplay a lot. And I strongly recommend that if you are able to, find some Star Wars Destiny stuff, buy it, because that game is absolutely fantastic still to this day. I wish they didn't have to cancel it. But I also want to give a shout out to Smash Up. Smash Up is also an incredible game. I would say between the three games I just listed, if you like Disney Villainous a lot, Smash Up is probably the one you will enjoy the most. It's got a lot of the same kind of playing a character out with a strength value, and you have these other action/event card type of ordeals. I think a lot of Villainous players will really like Smash Up too. So, but
I
yeah,
feel like
those are the games I used to play.
I may have played Smash Up once a long time ago. I
It's a
don't
good
remember
game.
much about it.
No, so like quick context with Smash Up is that Smash Up's kind of goal is to basically sort of do like a TCG, like build your own deck, but in reality, all you're doing is taking two factions and you're smashing them together. So it'll be something like kitty cats and zombies and ninjas and killer sharks. And the idea is that both the factions or each faction has kind of its gimmick. So zombies have a whole thing of playing cards from your discard pile or using stuff from your discard pile to take advantage. While the wizards are really heavy on action cards and having really powerful action cards, and their minions also work really well with action cards. So that's kind of the whole gimmick, where essentially you're taking these two decks, putting them together, and then you're playing minions to bases, trying to break the bases to score points. And obviously, when you break a base, whoever has the most strength at the location based off of the minions you own is the winner. And it's fun because it's one of the few games that, like, from a casual audience perspective, like, if you want to get, like, let's say, I've talked about this before on the show. My dad's turning 60 this year. Shout out to my dad. And he's the one that's played board games with me my entire life. He's played all sorts of stuff with me. And I've realized that as he's gotten older, he's not really a huge fan of, like, the huge heavy strategy stuff, but he likes more of the casual, like, pick up and play stuff. And Smash Up is kind of probably the deepest game I could play with him that he actually gets. And it's a ton of fun to, like, get someone on a quote unquote more casual level to get to play a game that's deep. There are loads of factions in Smash Up that you can play with, and
Without a
it's
doubt, and if you're
fun.
combining two of them on top of each other, you get into this weird state where you can just have hundreds of different potential deck combos, synergies
Yeah, no, I
be
believe it.
non-existent.
I was gonna say, I don't remember how many there are at this point, but I at least own like 40 to 50 different factions. Every year I get the new Smash Up expansions, just because even if I don't play it a whole lot, I just like having everything. Because even when I
Yep,
play with my friends, we roll a dice, and based off the positioning in my little storage unit box, which is what I reference all the time when I talk about the big box stuff for Disney Villainous that we want. And we just play two random factions and we just go for it. And it's a fun time. I adore Smash Up.
nothing
So,
like taking a strategy game and taking the strategy out of it.
oh, exactly.
Random chance.
Yeah, random chance. I know that ditto luck. But yeah.
Well, luck is a bit of a stretch. Um, so that's a little bit about before Villainous. Now, obviously, you started with Evil Comes Prepared because Scar exists.
Scar.
But after that, once you kind of started getting into the game, what were some of your first impressions from the rest of the cast?
So I do have to say, I got the original Villainous literally the week before Evil Comes Prepared came out, because I basically went ahead and bought the core box and Evil Comes Prepared all at the same time, because I was just like, I know for a fact I am going to want to play Scar. And I remember when I got it, I remember it was a Sunday. And was it Sunday? I think it was a Sunday, Saturday or Sunday. And I just kind of really wanted to dive into a bunch of the different characters. And my first impressions with the game there was something about it I couldn't put my finger on that I was really liking. Where, most tabletop games, even when you're learning them for the first time, you you pick it up, you play the game. Games usually last between 40 minutes to maybe an hour and 30 minutes, depending on how long you're learning it for the first time and all that stuff. And when I I always tell people my first game I ever played was I was playing Hades, and my opponent was playing Prince John, and I could not believe how much fun I was having. And when I left the game, I lost. I got destroyed because Prince John, everybody. And I remember the game ended, and I was like, I want to play again immediately right afterwards. Like, and that's not something that happens a lot with games that I play. Like, even when Star Wars Destiny, the only times that we would want to play, like when I would play with folks that I used to intern with out in Washington State, we would play Star Wars Destiny in like sets of 2 out of 3, and those games would last pretty quick once people knew what they were doing with the decks that we had created and stuff like that. But Villainous, especially when you're learning for the first time, definitely is not the 20-minute shenanigans stuff that we've been able to show on the YouTube channel. It is a lot longer of an experience, and I was playing with 2 players, but I think even after like 40 minutes of that game, I wanted to play it again. And that was when everything just started clicking and we'll probably dive more into that on the episode, so I won't go too much deep into it right now. But the cast itself, like, what happened was after playing Hades, I just wanted to play everybody, like every single character. I want to see what all their gimmicks were. I wanted to see how, like, the different thematic elements were with the different characters, because I've told this before that, like, I never considered myself a really big Disney fan, but after playing this game, it made me realize I was. And it wasn't necessarily because, oh, I really like Villainous. It's because, oh, there are lots of movies in here that I actually really enjoy watching. And you kind of, if you're like me and you don't watch a lot of movies, you kind of forget that you really like Disney. And, jumping into this, it kind of just took me down memory lane a little bit, especially when you play with a lot of the core box characters like Ursula and Jafar and Maleficent and Queen of Hearts, you know, and it was a fun time. And just like and like for characters I had never seen the movies for don't crucify me, folks, but Prince John, I never seen Robin Hood before, but then it was kind of fun to actually like,
Classic.
yeah, the only two movies I had not seen of the cast at that point were Robin Hood and Great Mouse Detective. So I watched both of those, and I was in for a treat. It was a fun time.
And it's kind of weird because those two, I think, came out about the same time,
I was gonna say, because I think Prince John, Robin Hood was late
right?
70s. Was it Great Mouse Detective was either mid 80s or a little later 80s? I forget. I know it was before Little Mermaid, 'cause I know Little Mermaid was like 89 or something like that, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
I could be wrong. But yeah,
Yeah,
no,
it sounds about on point.
yeah, that was my experience with the cast, and I just remember like that next week, just like playing with different folks with different characters, and like at that point, in the early stages, you're just learning everybody, so you're not really taking the game too seriously. But then, like, as the guy who was playing Scar a lot, I just kept getting my butt kicked because Hakuna Matata was a thing, and not I just didn't know how to get around it. And we'll probably get into more of that stuff later in this little bit of an
Even
interview.
still,
But
it's
yeah,
kind of hard to say that you've gotten around it at this point. I
I
still
mean,
catch you with it
you
now and
never
again.
get around a Hakuna Matata. What a wonderful phrase. But yeah, that's kind of my experience with the generally with the cast, at least from the get go, was just wanting to learn everybody. And I kind of even it goes into it what it is now. Well, and for those of folks who keep up with me and my shenanigans on the server, like I like learning characters. It's the student slash teacher in me that I really just like to learn how to get better. And, because as a teacher and even as a student, and I tell my students this, especially for programming, is that you have to make mistakes to get better. And you want to, if you, especially for the field of technology, you want to prove that you're the best of the best so you can work really nice jobs and have like be put in really good situations and people look at you with value, because everyone wants to be valued, and so do these villains. They do, like each one of these villains wants to be played. It doesn't matter if you don't like a particular character because of the movie or what have you. It's you want to learn these characters because they want to be learned how to be played because they were designed to encourage players to keep playing them over and over again. I mean, even in the box and in the instruction booklet, they say like after you mastered someone, then try to learn another villain. But the thing is, and I was actually recently playing with my neighbor, and she was telling me how, like, it's like, yeah, sure, you won with somebody, but you haven't actually won with them yet. Because the way that you win with characters is if you are learning all the different strategies and all the different tools and how to approach all the different situations. It's not just like, oh, I win, go on to the next. And sure, maybe from a casual audience perspective, that's like really good, because like 3 villains in a box in an expansion, you show that to somebody that's brand new to tabletop, they're able to win with all 3 of the villains. They're like, cool, I did it. But from a heavier tabletop gamer perspective, it's you realize that just because I won with a character doesn't mean I'm done. It's like I talk about with like we talk about too much Ursula on the server as it is. But I even when I was talking about Scar is like just because you just win with Scar once doesn't mean you won with Scar. The way you win with these characters is that you really dive in and learn all their tool sets and you make it so when you are playing against a player, you are close. You are close to winning even when you lose. And that's why recently when I was doing the deep dive strategy with Scar, I made point noted that because I know lots of players still struggle playing Scar. And it's because Hakuna Matata is really broken. And the thing is, though, from a fighting game mindset, when things are broken, you gotta live with the fact that they're broken. You gotta keep moving forward. You can't you could sit there and complain about how busted it is, but kind of fighting games encourage you to be like, let's work around the bustedness. And that's what this game encourages you to do. It really encourages you to think outside the box, and that's why it's considered a strategy game. It is incredible the design that they put into forcing players to learn. And from a teacher, I think it's incredible. So
It's really good that they managed to cater their game to just about every audience, too. You said
no,
about casual players being satisfied with just winning the game, and then you've got the deep divers who are just, I must know everything. It's a
that's
good
me.
combination.
No, I think that, I mean, from a design perspective, and I just I do know for a fact that, like, I tell people that part of the reason why what I do and what we do with the podcast and like the videos on the channel and stuff is to get people excited about this game. And it doesn't matter like how high or low on the tabletop spectrum you are per se, like how like into it you are. My goal is to get people excited about this game in all sorts of avenues. And this game, and I know you can attest to this a little bit because you really enjoy making the customs for this game, and it's because this game has a really good engine to build stuff off of that. But it just goes to show how core of an engine, and you don't really see this with a lot of tabletop games where the engine is so tight and so well put together that you have someone who is new to tabletop games that can jump in and kind of understand what's going on. You have someone who's super deep into it that can really take all the strategy. And then if you want to go beyond that, if you understand, and we talked about this with our engine episode, where you have someone like yourself who wants to go make customs for the game. And I think being able to push all those different audiences with this game is really important. And it's also what, I try to strive for. I know we both try to strive for with the podcast and the videos that we put out to get people excited about this game. And I want more people to play this game. And honestly, it's I know especially in our community we have lots of hardcore Disney fans. We do. But the Villainous engine itself is also really good, and when Marvel comes out, I just can't wait for so many more people to get their hands on the system.
It's
And
gonna explode.
it's going I don't think people listening to the show right now probably are at heart at least a Disney fan, but I don't think anyone realizes how big Marvel is. But that also excites me so much because the core engine of Villainous is so good on its own that so many more players are going to be able to be introduced to this hobby. I'm not even just talking about Villainous, just the hobby itself, because there are so many Marvel fans, there are so many MCU fans, there's so many comic book fans. If you want to dive a little deeper, so many video game fans. I There is so much that
Marvel
this game
Champions
is going
can
to
only
open.
do so much.
Yeah, this game is really gonna bust open Marvel on tabletop that I don't think we've seen before. The closest we've got with Marvel on tabletop has been Legendary by Upper Deck, which is also an incredible Marvel game. It's a great co-op game, but there has not been a Marvel game that I think has nailed thematics. And if Villainous does one thing incredibly well with its engine, it's like, hey, take this card, make it thematic. And
Or take this theme, make it a card.
exactly. Um, we just it's funny because yesterday on the recording of this, we just did the deep dive with Yzma and looking at all the cards again. And we've already talked about this on the show, so I won't try to reiterate it too much. But it just kind of shows how much design space that this game allots. Because literally, the reason why Yzma is so fun to play is because she's so thematic, and just the fact that they have the design space to allow a designer to build a character like that, especially because Emperor's New Groove is a very energetic film. It is, and you want to be able to show that off in the game like this. And I can, especially with these Marvel villains, and honestly, even like I'm actually more excited for the Fate deck, honestly, at this point, because I want to see how all those heroes interact. I'm just excited. Yeah, I just want
That'll
more
be
people to play
interesting
this
for
game.
sure.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
Tying back to the podcast a little bit, I don't know if you realize this, but we've actually been doing this for about 6 months now,
yeah. I know.
give or take.
It's crazy to think about.
So, how's that going for you? That kind of ties
So
into the
I
discussion a little bit.
so long time ago. Not really that long time ago. It feels like it though. So for those of you who do not know, I am 26 years old. And so I know almost 3 years ago now, I just finished grad school. And 2013 is when I was in undergraduate. And when I was in college, one of the things I got very much introduced to with my extra spare time that you have when you try to become a young adult is podcasting and YouTube as a whole. And I've already been into it when I was like in high school. Like I've been in the YouTube sphere since 2009, and which is kind of weird to think about now in hindsight, because I've officially been a YouTube user for 10 years, and that's weird to think about.
It is a little funky.
Yeah, it's a little odd. And but the thing is though, I've always wanted to do YouTube, and I've always wanted to do a podcast. And I've told this before on the content somewhere. I forget where exactly, but one of my big influencers into want to do any of this. Actually, I would say there's probably three. The main one I would say is Greg Miller from Kind of Funny, and the whole Kind of Funny crew in themselves. The reason for that is because they have just gone so far so fast, and how fast they've grown as a company. For those of you who do not know, Greg Miller used to be one of the big, news editors at IGN, the big gaming website. And in 2015, he basically left along with some of his colleagues to form Kind of Funny full time. And that was a big deal because no one had really done that in the industry before, where they left a big outlet and then they were the first big folks on Patreon. And that's how all the Patreon, waves started happening, of all these different content creators, using Patreon to try to support themselves. But Greg is also an incredibly positive person, and he always tries to make sure the podcasts are, fun, uplifting shows. And I've taken a lot of, heart to that, and to try to do what we do on this show, where, you know, I want the show to be fun to listen to, as well as I hope it, we focus on villainous, don't get me wrong, but we also dive in a lot of other little kind of tabletop type of topics, and it's been fun to really do the show. And if it weren't for Greg, none of this would have been possible. Because one of the things I did learn is that, so when I was in college, I actually bought a lot of my equipment I'm using now back when I was like sophomore, junior year of college. And it was mainly because I wanted to actually start doing YouTube stuff. But the problem though was, like, I wanted to do it with people that cared about the same stuff I did. And I couldn't find that at the time, because at the time I was really into Killer Instinct. And Killer Instinct is a fighting game that is on an Xbox console. And then for those of you who do not know, Xbox did not do that great this generation. No, it did not. So I was in a very niche audience, and even then too, at the time, PlayStation was still kind of a niche audience too, because I was into all the PlayStation exclusives. And players at that point still weren't maybe paying attention to PlayStation exclusives as they do now. Um, and that's like, and I've told this before, like my bread and butter back then was mainly video games. But as I've gotten older, tabletop games kind of took more of a precedence. And then with meeting you folks on the Discord, because, once I got really into Villainous, I wanted to play it on Tabletop Simulator and find more folks to play with so I can play at a more constant rate. I you folks really kind of inspired me to really take off with this and do something that I really care about. And I don't want to get too sappy ditto, but I do have to appreciate the fact you've been tolerating my nonsense for 6 months. But I mean, but the thing is, like, to go, what I was saying though is, like, I wanted folks that cared about this stuff to be on the show. And I do appreciate the fact that you do care about this, as well as a lot of our other guests that have been on the show as well. I know the reason why I picked the guests that we do, especially in these much later episodes, is because they care about the game, and they care about the different topics that surround the game, even if whether it's within the game or outside of the game. And I think that's super important, because that's what builds community. And I assume there's probably going to be a community question at some point in the show. But that's what this is all tried to do. I'll do a quick so I don't tangent too long. The two other folks I do want to shout out on this podcast are Maximilian Dood. Maximilian Dood is probably the absolute biggest fighting game YouTube creator on the internet. And his kind of mantra is putting out a fighting game video every day, because that's what keeps the audience engaged. And I have to say that's really helped our channel grow a lot faster than I thought, because originally I was going to be doing the channel at a lot slower of a pace because, I do work full time as a teacher. Now, granted, I do have a lot more flexible time as a teacher, so I get to finagle in villainous matches at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday. But that really has definitely helped kind of make my creative juices flowing a little bit in terms of trying to find some new content to do besides just playing nonstop TTS matches. Because believe it or not, at the time of this recording, I have matches all the way up until 2021 lined up on the YouTube channel 3 days a week. So yeah.
We got you covered.
Yeah, now we got you covered, and that doesn't even include Marvel. And the last one I want to shout out, and I would probably say this is one of the very pivotal things that really made me realize this is doable, is Double Blank Scamming. And for those of you who do not know who Double Blank Scamming are, they are a YouTube channel that focuses on Star Wars Destiny. And they were one of the first tabletop podcasts I started listening to, because when Star Wars Destiny came out, it blew up and tons of people wanted to play it. And it kind of accrued a community of people who wanted to talk about the game, because it was the first, I would say it was the first really big competitive Star Wars tabletop game in years. There was the Star Wars LCG, but that one didn't actually pan out as well as Fantasy Flight hoped. But Destiny really caught the community by storm. And I remember what it is. It's just these two guys, I forget what their names are at the top of my head, but they're from Georgia. And they just did a podcast and did TTS matches of Star Wars Destiny. And they just talked about it, and they were super casual about it. And it was super cool to see how those folks grew. And granted, they don't really do this stuff anymore because obviously Star Wars Destiny doesn't exist. But it was kind of cool to see like a tabletop podcast really take off and actually have a community that was very community focused. Because like I said, these were very casual folks. They I know I swear sometimes on the podcast, but these guys gave no cares in the world about what they said on the show. And I was like, woo, I wouldn't say that, but more power to you. But I do want to say that part of that though is I do want to make this feel like a real show, where you're talking to real people. I kind of relate real experiences when I talk about topics, especially like what we're doing today, is because I don't want to seem like someone who just wants to sit here and praise a game all day. I mean, we kind of basically do that, but like there are things of Villainous I do not enjoy. There are things, and that also shows you that, and I'm not just trying to toot my own horn, but I am a fan of this game. And when you're a fan of something, you also have to be critical of it. And that means you also have to be human. I don't want to sit here and tell you that every single character in this game is the greatest thing ever put into existence, but it is my favorite game of all time. But I also know there's things about it that can be improved. And obviously Marvel has shown that in a much greater light now, what the things that need to be improved. So yeah, my long-winded answer of podcast for 6 months.
It really doesn't feel like 6 months, does it?
I know it doesn't feel like 6 months.
Oh boy. Well, speaking of the community stuff, I know you said that a few times in that spiel.
Yes, I did.
How do you feel about the community you've kind of built for yourself?
It's weird to think about. It's funny. I told people when I was going to grad school is that the whole reason why I was going to grad school is because I want to be a teacher, and I wanted to be a college lecturer. And I want the whole purpose of really being a teacher, especially for what I like, for someone's in the field of technology, is like I can go find a job that's going to pay a lot better than what I'm doing right now. I absolutely can. But the thing is, when with a teacher, if you want to be a good teacher, and I'm not trying to make this a teaching podcast, we're getting the change to the 85% of the time to 80% of the time now. About Villainous is the whole point of being a teacher is you're trying to build a connection between student and the instructor. And the reason why that's important is because it's a two-way street. You want the students to listen to you and listen to what you have to say. But that also means that you also have to be a good instructor back and also be a human being to them as well. Obviously you can't just let them get away with everything, but in order to build that camaraderie, you have to have that two-way street interaction, and that's what makes teaching powerful when done correctly. Not just a typical a lecturer sits up at the pedestal and is says their thing for an hour and then everyone leaves. Like especially for technology, it's a lot more hands-on. You got to do a lot more explanation on why things are important and give practical examples, not just like textbook examples, like things from my life. And I did, I mean, and I love teaching, that's why I still do it. I actually talked about on the Discord recently, I actually just found out I'm going to be going up for a terminal degree. And for those of you who do not know what that means, it's a doctoral degree. So it just means I'll be spending 4 years of my life essentially not only teaching, but also trying to get a better degree so I can be better positions and do a lot more with teaching. But besides the point, teaching is all about building community. And when I came into the community, our first Discord server that was not originally founded by Let's Get Wicked, you know, all I wanted to do on that server was build a community because this game meant so much to me where I wanted to build a group of folks that loved something and loved everything about it and the facets of it that existed outside. And the reason why I built the new Discord servers because I wanted to make sure that all was together. Well, we don't need to get into details, but I wanted to make sure that the Discord server was going to stay for a long time and the community around it because that's one of the nice things about Discord is and I've also had to learn this too because believe it or not, this is my first major like Discord interaction anything. Believe it or not, folks. This is the first time I've really used Discord heavily. And all I ever want to do when I put this together was have people from all spectrums of the world, all different backgrounds, come together to talk about this game and all sorts of different lights. And it has been incredible to see the amount of response that people have had from this community. I cannot believe I I don't want to I don't want to speak out of term, but I feel like a leader. You know what I mean? I I have I front-handedly almost, with the help of obviously you and many other folks, um, basically lead to have probably the best place to talk about Disney villainous and villainous in general. Like there is a place now if you want to get super nerdy that we have a space that's better than Board Game Geek. I don't want to be super negative Nancy on Board Game Geek, but like I jump in the forums on Board Game Geek for villainous every single day. I don't think people understand how like I do that. I don't respond to a lot of things. Sometimes I do, especially when it has pertains to the podcast and YouTube and stuff like that. But I jump on those forums and I don't see the correct interactions I want to see. Like and it's not necessarily because someone's posting bad things about the game. It's just more of like people aren't coming to an agreement and there isn't any context for anything. And sometimes someone posts something and it just kind of goes out into the space and all that stuff. But every time I look at any of the channels on Discord, people are having a good conversation. I barely have to butt in to stop any nonsense and people are just talking about the game and having a good time. And I think the thing too is that we're a little bit more of a casual community too. We're not like one of these crazy people who are like, oh, if you're going off topic, blah blah blah. We like to have fun here. It's a casual environment, but we also talk like deep strategy and just fun stuff with the characters as well, Because I mean, it's not only just talking about the game; it's also about the friends that you've made. I I've told Ditto this before, but it's amazing to feel like you have friends on the other side, literally, where Ditto and I have had many nights that we've like after doing a stream or recording, we've stayed up for like 4 hours just talking about games. It's been really
And
fun.
Cooper.
Yeah, yeah, Ditto can confirm this. And but the thing is like especially like during these hashtag COVID times, that's what I'm gonna call it now. Um, I mean, like you shouldn't be going out and being incredibly social. Like, and especially with tabletop, it's hard to. But and like with these Discord communities, we've been able to form friends that we talk to on a semi or even a regular basis. Ditto and I interact, weekly, and it's not just because of the shows and stuff. Like I chat, I make sure Ditto's doing okay. Ditto checks and make sure I'm doing okay. You know, you usually Ditto's talking about customs, which I'm excited to see. Because I know Ditto spent a lot of time on those. I also got to give huge shout outs to two other folks I talk to a lot. Brian Drums and Great Salmon from the community. Salmon has actually introduced me to D&D, and I've been trying to do some D&D with the group he's put together, and it's actually been really fun. So it's actually been outside of just like Villainous in general. And also, I shout this out all the time, and I know Salmon's probably tired of hearing me mention him, but Salmon is also an incredibly nice person. Like just generally all around, just wants to be a decent human being to everybody. And every time you play a Villainous game with him, he is just a blast to play. It like doesn't matter casually or competitively. He is just so much fun to play. And then also with Brian, Brian's been fun because Brian is just like another friend. Like I haven't really been able to like have that sort of camaraderie friend situation in a bit just because of COVID times and stuff like that. And actually being able to have someone that I can hang out with play games and just kind of talk about life has also been really fun. But none of that would have been created without the community. And the thing too is with the community, we've been like the reason why I'm able to like last night have a tournament finalist come on and talk about Yzma for almost 2 hours is because we've accrued a community that feels comfortable talking about this stuff. And also folks that want to join in on Twitch. And literally last Friday, I just sat and talked for 2 hours and people just want to hang out and just talk. It was awesome. And that's just the kind of communities I want to make. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the game all the time. And granted, our community is based around Villainous, but it's just kind of been incredible to see. I just can't believe I'm trying to be humble, but at the same time, my brain's just like, I did this. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, it's fair to take credit. You did kind of build it.
it's just weird to think about because I just never thought I would be in a situation where there are hundreds, not maybe thousands of people who watch the YouTube content, are on Discord, listen to the podcasts, tune in to Twitch streams, want to enter. I've gotten to the point now that on Twitter, I have people sometimes tweet at me about Villainous stuff, which is cool. And like, it's not like the bombarding crazy nonsense, but it's weird to think that people care about my opinion. It's just like, I get people that DM me and they say like how much this is meaningful to them. And it means a lot. And the thing is, I'm not always able to respond to every single person. So if you've responded to me and you're in the Discord community and I didn't respond to you, it's not because I didn't see your message or I just don't care. It's because I've realized now that people really do care about what I put together and I just get so much of it, and it's awesome to know that you guys care about what we do. And I also try to relay that in the community as well, because I've talked about this before. These past few months, and it's not even been with COVID. These past few months have been incredibly weird. I don't necessarily want to get too personal on this show with stuff that's happened to me. But I could at least talk about this. The tournament that we just hosted had to be delayed because I had to go to a funeral. And on top of that, that same week, my family dog passed away. And also there was some just weird stuff going on with work. And it was really rough. And I came back from the funeral that Saturday night before the Sunday of the tournament. And literally so much outroaring support that just came out on the tournament that is wanted to watch, and people wishing me happy birthday because it was my birthday. And it was just like, wow, like these people care. Like I've helped create a place where people actually want to care about the stuff that I put together. And that means a lot. It really does.
That's no small feat either.
No, it's not, because I mean, the thing too is when you have a community like this, it's not just, oh, you just have a place where people can go talk. It's also like creating the environment for people to want to talk. You know, like we talk, like people on social media talk about all the time where there's like the silent majority, you know, but and then like a lot of it is just hatred being spewed on the internet. And really in this Discord, we don't get that. I mean, sure, I will complain about Ursula, but really our complaints about Ursula is because we want her to be good and we want to find ways to get her to work, you know? We're not just sitting here saying that she sucks and calling it a day, you know, like creating a community like that's hard. And granted, we aren't the biggest community in the world, don't get me wrong. But even with that being said, you know, it's amazing to know that we've helped kind of nurture an environment where we're like, hey, and I've actually recently talked about this with you folks. It's like we're mostly adults here. You know, like there's no reason to bring drama. This place is for us to have a good time and to feel safe and to have fun. That is the purpose of everything that this whole community is based around is those things. It's why like you know we say stay delightfully wicked is because it's not about being an evil mastermind. It's about being radical. It's like the cool 90s lingo because you know being born in the 90s that's you know growing up with Crash Bandicoot, you know. It's just what you think of the word. But that's what I mean by it though is be cool, be excellent to each other. You know, I and the fact that I don't just have to say that anymore and like people have like people take that seriously but also like people take that to heart and actually act on it. I think that's incredibly important. No.
With having a community come together and build on itself like that, you start getting some sort of optimized strategies, ways to play the game. Uh, Back in the day, as if we've been doing this for 20 years,
Back in my day.
we had kind of this Fate War idea going around, and that's kind of gone now. So, I guess on my
Yeah.
end, just getting your insight as to how the meta of the game has shifted a little bit over time.
So I think to go on the Fate Wars topic. I think our ideology on that has evolved since we've talked about it on the podcast. Because I think there's two avenues behind it. And we've kind of mentioned it in that show, but I definitely think it's also worth pointing out here that if you're going to be the person that's going to fate 6 turns in a row without any reason to do so, I'm sorry, you're just kind of a scumbag. Um, and the reason for that is, and this goes in a little bit of the meta topic. If you want to win in this game, and you need to fate, don't get me wrong, but you want to fate and still progress towards your goal because I'm stealing this from Cincinnati because the word is such a better word than using pace, but tempo. You want to control the tempo of the game. And it's not only just fading, it's also progressing towards your goal and setting up to make sure you can defend against things that can go towards your goal. And it's very obvious that if you're going to be fading every other turn, or not every other turn, every turn, you are forcing the opponent to do the same to you, and then both of you have to slow down. And especially with the kind of the competitive setup that we've kind of got going on, game goes on for an hour, turns last at the most 2 minutes. You know, it's forced players to be like, let's actually play the game. And really what the meta has turned into is making sure that you can fade every other turn, make sure that you can still progress towards your goal, and also kind of set up for when you're going to get halted by fake cards. And it's been really awesome to see that because you know from a viewer standpoint, it's awesome to watch all the different cards get played out in a multitude of different ways, and it actually forces players to use all the different tools in a villain's pocket in a multitude of different ways. You're no longer seeing cards just getting discarded willy nilly, but you also see some times where cards are not used in the ways you think they would be. And that's why we get cases like Yzma, where I mean, people saw it. My tier list, I put Yzma at the very bottom, but in bottom in terms of C, there wasn't like a D or an E, but it was mainly because just the randomness factor. And Cincinnati kind of showed up where it was just like, no, this character's pretty good. Not, and he even said it last night. It's like Yzma can hold her own against a majority of the cast at a 50-50 level, which is good. You want a character like that. That's actually not a horrible thing. But like the meta has shifted to the point where players now have to really think. And also, like, fading has become a lot more powerful in terms of people. I've been saying this for a long time now, and people are finally taking it to heart. So I'm not gonna take full credit for it. Playing heroes blocks actions. Our joke on the podcast is options. And that reigns supreme to the point now that we have people who can stop Dr. Vasilier and Evil Queen. We do. Probably when we first were doing the show, probably are the two most powerful characters in the game that have stayed at that level. And now we got characters like Captain Hook that have arisen. And the reason why Captain Hook is so good is because he just has so many options and so many tools and is so consistent. And now the fun thing is about the game is now the meta is kind of shifted to how do we stop Captain
Right.
Hook? Because he is so good. And now it's kind of like players have to think differently in terms of how they want to go against Captain Hook. Because I'll tell you, as a Scar player, Scar is not good against Captain Hook. I was actually playing Brian the other day, and I've had 2 games now against Brian. And just to let you guys know, if you don't know, Brian is a Captain Hook main. And I was playing Scar, and Scar does not do good against Captain Hook at all. I both times was at either right at 14 or above 15 succession in my strength pile. And I was doing super well. Like had lots of room to breathe on my board, and I just got destroyed. But then it's like, how do I get better? And it's also the fact of like in the meta now, and I was doing it that game, fading every other turn. You go keep your spaces clean so you can be able to fate and do it effectively and still progress. And I think that's where the meta is shifted, and having characters that are still able to progress towards their goal and actually play a little bit more control, defeating heroes, I think is also important. I think this whole theory of fate stacking heroes has kind of gone away. I think even with players who want to play characters like Cruella and Queen of Hearts, um, even there's going to be probably a little bit of hero manipulation of trying to keep them out on the board and see what you can do. But there's still going to be like you need to be able to control your action economy, and I do think that's where the meta has gone. I do not believe this game is meant to be a giant Fate War shenanigan mess. I don't think you need to Fate every single turn for the first 5 turns to defeat your opponent. Doesn't matter who you're playing with. I do think there is a you want to be able to go back and forth with the fading. And luckily, because of the nature of how this game works, it's a 15 card Fate deck. You draw 2, and you have to be able to play 1. Sometimes you don't want to play 1 if you have to, and other times it's a dead draw. So even at those times, it's not that big of a deal. Um, but yeah, I think the meta's in a really good spot right now. I am actually really excited to see where it goes, especially now where people know that Captain Hook is kind of the one to take down. I'm curious to see the strategies that people are going to try to develop to take down Captain Hook, because if you're able to take down Captain Hook with that strategy, you're also going to be able to take down Evil Queen and Dr. Vasilier. So, and that's going to make what I overall feel is a relatively balanced cast of characters, um, even more balanced, and still allow characters to do kooky, fun stuff, because that's what I live for in this game. So yeah.
Maybe this is our only hope.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you kind of mentioned it before too, but we're still relatively hot off the heels of the first community tournament. Now that there's been a
Yeah.
couple weeks to kind of let that sit and simmer a little bit, kind of get a couple of your thoughts as to how that went and what you thought.
So I said this on the day when we finished up the tournament, but the tournament is one of the coolest things that I have ever done. As a fighting game guy, I've always wanted to be part of a tournament, whether it was hosting it or playing in it. And I think overall, it went a lot better than I was expecting, especially with the fact that I had to turn around a date, basically delay it 2 days. It was awesome to see all the play that we saw, and kind of like the level of play of Disney Villainous. I've tell people that, if you really want to show like a showcase of what this game is meant to look like, the last like 3 hours of the tournament, which I still can't believe that thing went on for 9 hours, which is insane to me. The last 3 hours of the tournament where we were getting down to, like, the ending of the losers bracket and going into the finals, it was insane to see all the play and, like, all the different ways to play characters. I think, and I've already mentioned this a little bit. The two biggest highlights for me in terms of just stuff that happened in that tournament was, one, Cincinnati's Yzma, where we saw a character that none of us were really expecting to actually have a prominent kind of place in the tournament and actually do relatively well, was really cool. And the fact that Pikmin was playing Prince John and was really the only Prince John player in the tournament, and was playing Prince John not necessarily in an unusual way, but in a relatively faster way than probably most players have seen Prince John played, because he's relatively a much slower character. And it was fun to see that. And what excites me is that, for those of you on the podcast listening, we are working on trying to put together a competitive league for Villainous. And we're working out the kinks and stuff, because, the tournament was awesome, but there was definitely some things we can improve on. But it's come to light where this game needs that type of outlet to have players show off the characters. And I think it's like the biggest thing to take away from the tournament is that we were able to show off this pool of characters. So when we're able to open up a league that's going to allow anyone to jump in and play with their characters and play at a very high level, I can't wait to see the other strategies that we get to see. Because I told people, one that, and I can, this goes back to the community topic a little bit, is it's fun to get different people's opinions and different play styles. Seeing Cincinnati's Yzma, I've been playing Shattered Ice's Gothel, and it's a different take on the characters that you don't normally see, and it actually works really well. And it's a combination of, oh, you're not expecting it, but also, Cincinnati is showing it off too, where the strategy actually makes it ineffective for the opponent to fate Yzma in a way. And it's like, oh wow, that's cool. And with the competitive tournament style of it, I can't wait to do more of this. We will do another one of these. I want it to happen. I definitely going to need more people to help me, because I know the biggest feedback we got was I was running with my head cut off the whole time. But it was worth it because it was so much fun. It was so much fun. 9 hours of Disney Villainous. I don't think you could say anyone else has ever done that. It's incredible. It was awesome. Super cool. And yeah, I like I said, best birthday present I've ever gotten literally is just having all of you folks hang out and like want to talk competitive stuff, or the players that were competing and the judges to help judge and commentate and stuff. It was just a blast. I loved it every second. I couldn't get enough of it. It was awesome.
Look forward to seeing more of those in the future, guys.
Yeah, no. Yeah, we'll be doing more.
The last thing I've got for you is actually a little bit looking into the future instead of the past. And looking at Marvel.
Marvel!
Just kind of what you think, what you plan to expect, what you want to do with Marvel.
Marvel, baby. Let's talk about the future. The typical the YouTube tagline that people use on their deep talk videos. So I poured my guts out when I was talking on Monday stream about Marvel Villainous. As of today, 2 days ago, was when we got the Watch It Played video by Rodney Smith that basically showcased a lot of the game and all the mechanics and all that stuff. And Marvel has me incredibly excited because Marvel is the cleaned up Disney Villainous. That's what it is. At the core, the mechanics of the game are very much evolved. They are very different, and I'm very excited about them. And it's even just outside of the fact of, and I've said this, is that Marvel is my favorite fandom, thing to engage with. I love the comics. I enjoy some of the movies. I enjoy the video games. I enjoy the characters and just learning about the characters, even if I don't read their comic books. I like the art of all the different heroes and villains and all that stuff. That's even outside the Villainous game. That's just in general. I I love Marvel. Marvel's one of my favorite things. I mean, I love superheroes. I looked up to superheroes as a kid. I still look up to them to this day. And Marvel's going to be interesting because it definitely, and we've talked about this on our Marvel podcast, where it's definitely going to be a different game. It is definitely going to be a more civilization kind of style game than probably, I would say Disney Villainous is more of like taking a trading card game or a collectible card game and just kind of making that into a multiplayer environment in a way. And I'm excited to see where Marvel goes, just because I'm actually like what makes Marvel interesting, and I won't try to over say the same thing I've already said too much, but Marvel's interesting because, like I said, with Disney, I am a Disney fan, but I become more of a Disney fan because of this game. So like, and I talked about this last night when we were doing the deep dive with Dsma, but like my four favorite Disney movies are Tarzan, or at least 2D animated ones. Tarzan, Lion King, Hercules, Emperor's New Groove, in that order. Those are my favorite, 2D animated Disney movies. And that's not counting the fact that Night Before Christmas is a thing. But like all the other ones, like, yeah, I generally remember them and I enjoy them, especially if you're like us and you listen to the show, and the other was it 20% of this podcast is Kingdom Hearts. You generally enjoy those characters, but like with Marvel, I enjoy all these characters for all the things that they've been in, and that's what gets me really excited. Like, static. I cannot wait to look at everything and like also the future with Marvel, because there's gonna be so many different villains that we're gonna be able to see and the heroes that they're gonna bring to the table. I'm super excited about that. Um, I just I can't wait because obviously, like they mentioned, that Marvel is the next chapter of Villainous, and it shows. There's definitely a lot of new things, and I know you pointed out like the fact that it'd be kind of cool to do like in a fan errata where you have the mover start on the portrait. I think that would literally make or break a lot of different characters, or especially like if you made it so everyone's goal was no longer a start a turn goal, everyone's was an immediate one. Marvel has definitely taken some of the criticisms I've had of Disney Villainous and kind of like try to flush them out, because they're like, we know these things are things that people don't like, at least the game mechanically wise. So let's try to get rid of them, but let's try to get rid of them with a reason. And it's very clear from like a game design perspective, they've taken that seriously. And it's also interesting just the fact that, we know for a fact that that game was in a weird development state where Prospero got bought by Funko, Ravensburger had to take over the rest of the development. And, we were kind of skeptical on how that would have worked. And I was a little skeptical too, just because of the fact that I heard some playtesting didn't go super hot. But I, looking at what we've seen, and I am so excited. I am
It
so,
definitely seems like they've
so,
recovered from all their issues.
yeah, no, they definitely have. And it like, especially based off what I was told, it's very clear that they've really tried to clean stuff up. And I'm incredibly excited for the future of Marvel. Now, that doesn't have to say, and obviously, you guys know I love to speculate. And this is kind of one of the things I like doing. Um, is this doesn't mean though I'm not excited for the rest of Disney. And I do think with what we saw with Marvel, I think it does put a little bit more of a nail in the coffin to the fact that we are probably only going to get one more Disney set, and if not two, or it's going to be two sets basically in one box, type of ordeal. We'll get like one more 5 or 6 character big, like kind of like core box on its own. I I do want to say I'm still incredibly excited for that. We know for a fact that Gaston is made somewhere. He's waiting. Ravensburger has said plenty of times at this point that this is not the end of Disney Villainous. You know, I I can't wait to see the end. But it's the end of a game that was probably going to be around for 2 to 3 years, which is pretty incredible for a tabletop game on its own right to last that long. I always harken back to Smash Up because Smash Up's been going around since like 2012, 2013, and they're funny enough, they're releasing their Marvel Smash Up this year, which I find hilarious. But it's just that game's ran a very good life and has accrued a very good community of folks that really care about the game, and has also introduced a bunch of people to tabletop that never were going to be introduced to it before. and that says something. That means the game did its job, and ending Disney with the characters that we really want, like Gaston and the Bag of Bugs I so dearly love. I I can't wait. I mean, and the thing is like I don't know if Oogie's coming, and even if he doesn't, I'll be sad, but I'll still be really excited for whoever they bring in because it's just new characters. But I do want Oogie. Ravensburger, if you're listening to the show, Oogie better be coming. But yeah, I do want to say that when Disney has its final send off, which I know is probably going to be coming than sooner rather than later. I'm it's gonna be a moment. I'll be sad, but Marvel being my favorite fandom is being put into the villainous thing is gonna be really exciting. And I know lots of people, like I said, on our server are Disney fans, heart and heart and soul. They either like Kingdom Hearts a lot or they grew up watching all the Disney movies and all that stuff, or all the Disney cartoons. I I get that, but the thing is, and this is, and I'll kind of end this on this note, is tabletop. The thing that tabletop does, it's very different than video games, is that tabletop forces you to interact with somebody, forces you to sit across the table with a bunch of people you care about or want to play games with, and you're all there to enjoy a game and have a fun time. And Villainous, literally's whole goal was to get folks of all sorts of backgrounds that love Disney and whatever facet that they do to come together, play a game, and have fun. And when Disney ends, that will be the thing that I think something that should be remembered, is that probably of any other tabletop game out there in existence, it doesn't matter what you personally think of how good of a game Disney Villainous or Villainous in general is. The one thing that Villainous does that no other game in the industry of tabletop has been able to do at this level is to bring people of all sorts of backgrounds from all sorts of facets of life, whether they come from tabletop gaming or gaming in general. They are able to come together and play a wonderful game. That's what Villainous has done, and that no one can take that away from this game. There is, and I will stand by that as someone who has now played a lot of different tabletop games of all sorts of calibers and all sorts of like learning levels for all sorts of players. Villainous is the one that, if you want someone to be introduced to tabletop gaming and what it has to offer, this is the one. And the fact that you get to use that time to spend with someone that also cares about Disney, or with Marvel coming out, Marvel is incredible. And Ravensburger and Prospero Hall should be applauded for the fact that they were able to make something that definitely, there is a reason why it's marketed the way it is, because we want all those folks of all those different backgrounds to be able to get a hold of it. That's important, because the only way the community grows is you get more players to play it from all sorts of backgrounds. And the more people that you get to play a game, the more different mindsets and backgrounds that you get to experience as a human being. This is also going outside the game. And that's important. I, not to jump back on the community topic, but it is important, is I've learned a lot from you guys. And I do appreciate everything you folks have taught me, how to be a better person, how to be a good leader, how to be a better teacher. This game has really helped bring people together. So, yeah.
Never spoken.
I appreciate that. I do mean that. Is it doesn't matter how you view Villainous. It is the number one game to bring people together in tabletop. Doesn't matter how big of a gamer you are. It is the number one way to have fun with any group of folks. Period. Unless you're playing with a fate spamming degenerate Ursula, then I'll kick you out.
Oh, come on, that was me.
But but we were doing it for funsies. We were. Oh, you weren't necessarily. Well, granted, you were salty that day, but that's a story for another day. But yeah,
there you go, guys.
that's it.
Thanks, Joker, for being willing to bare your soul It's kind of a
Thank you,
year past.
thank you, Ditto. For I have to give a round of applause to Ditto for actually, granted, I know I did a lot of talking this show as I normally do, but Ditto actually, started the show, did the 1, 2, 3 countdown that we do, and hosted it, and did the plethora. And I didn't have to prep him at all for that. So I much shouts to Ditto. So we'll probably have to have Ditto host some more podcasts in the future.
Many ideas.
So we'll have to try to work around that.
But seriously, guys,
But
hope you guys enjoyed. Hope this gives you guys a little bit of a light on how the game has gone, at least for Joker, and how it's kind of evolved over time. Hopefully it gives you a little bit of insight as to how we kind of try to set everything up for you guys to enjoy and just kind of have fun playing the game.
Because that's the key, is fun.
Absolutely.
Fun is the most important factor in any facet.
All right, unless Joker, you've got any last comments you want to go ahead and throw in?
No, I'll let Ditto do the outro, but make sure you always have fun playing this game, guys. So
Indubitably.
Sun is out, friend.
All right, guys. Well, I guess we shall see you guys next week. So in the meantime, please stay maniacally, frightfully, delightfully wicked, guys.